Okay, let's start the chapter. Okay, so in this chapter, we'll talk about electronic commerce security. The learning object in this chapter, we want to know what security risk arise in online business and how to manage it. How to create a security policy, how to implement security on web client computer, how to implement security in the communication channels between computers, how to implement security on a web server computer, and what organizations promote computer, network, and internet security. The proper use of password protection is an important element in maintaining security. Most people are unwilling to remember numerous complex passwords and change them often. Password management tools are popular solutions for maintaining a multiple complex passwords. It requires a single master password for access. Weak link when hackers access the master password. Encryption is an important safeguard to help address the attacks. So the bottom line is a good complex password. That's one part. Now, when we're talking about online security issues, we can think of individual and business have had concerns about security since the internet became a business communicating tool. In this chapter, key security problems, we'll talk about topics like key security problems, and we'll talk about topics for the solution to those problems or potential solution. So, modern computer security technique developed by U.S. Defense, Department of U.S. as usual. Most of the IT developed there. The business computer initially adopted the military security methods, like the network and other factors have increased the number of users accessing computers. So there is a lot of network and computers increase the access. Computer now transmit the valuable information, and it's a valuable and important for us. So the changes have made the need for comprehensive security controls more important than ever because our life revolves around PCs. I believe on a daily basis, there is 750 PCs that we deal with locally and internationally. Now, the issue comes in computer security and risk management. Asset protection first, hardware. Asset protection from unauthorized access, use, alteration, and destructions. First, you have what you call the physical security, include tangible protections devices. And then you have what you call such as the physical one, like alarms, guard, fireproof doors, security fences, safes, and wallet, and bomb-proof buildings. Then you have what you call the logical security. It's about protecting using a non-physical means. So the threat is anything posing dangers to computer assets and not only software or hardware. The countermeasure are produced by, you can do it physically or and logical, that recognize, reduce, and eliminate threats, like a risk management. It's the extent and expense depends on how important of the asset, how you minimize that risk, mitigate that risk, actually. Companies in the beginning must identify risk, determine how to protect assets, and calculate how much to spend on protecting that asset. So if we look at this, is you're looking at the high probability, low probability, low impact, and high impact. And we'll explain this in a detail. The element of computer security. Scarcity refers to protecting against unauthorized data disclosure and ensure the data source authenticity. So you want to protect your data because any access to the data by unacceptable person or things might change the data and destroy the whole data for you. Integrity, which comes into integrity, is preventing unauthorized data information. Necessity refers to prevent the data delays or denials, removals. Imagine one student says that I changed marks in the college. What the consequences of that? Now, establishing a security policies, but before we talk about that, I just want you to think about the most places or sector or industry that gets hacked usually, and why. So establishing a security policy, back to that, written a statement of asset to protect and why, who is responsible for the protection, and acceptable and unacceptable behavior. So who is responsible, why, and what's acceptable behavior and what's unacceptable. And here's the steps you need to do to create security policies. Is first determine which assets to protect from which threats. Determine access need for a various system parts, what we're supposed to access to. Identify resources to protect the assets and develop a written security policy. That's how we do it in the field of software versus the field of hardware, or the logics and the hardware. Once the policy is written and approved, resources are committed to implement that policy and sustain it. Comprehensive security plan protects systems, privacies, integrities, and availabilities, and authenticates users. All security measures must work together to prevent unauthorized closure, destruction, and modification of assets. In a field of softwares, we need also to know who's supposed to see what, who's supposed to edit what, and what part of the application or the data that these people should not see or edit or not see and edit. Security policy points: authentication, access control, security, data integrity, and audit. I'll explain each one of them. But there is always what you call cookies and web bugs. Internet connection between a web client and servers accomplished by multiple independent transitions. The cookies are small text files, web server, placed on the web clients to identify a routine visitors. Every day you have all these cookies. Now, allow shopping. With these cookies, you can allow shopping cart and payment processing functions without creating an open session. So it remembers and keeps the data. Session cookies exist until their connection ends. The persistent cookies are the other things, which is they are the cookies that remain indefinitely always there. And electronic commerce use both persistent and session cookies. Cookies may be categorized by their sources. It could be a first-party cookies or a third-party cookies originated on the website other than the site being visited. You can disable cookies entirely for a complete protection, but then you will have a bad site to visit. Full site resources are not available if cookies are not allowed. Web server, you have then what you call a web browser cookies management function. Always you have some that refuse only a third-party cookies or review each cookies before allowing. So it does review it and refuse a third-party cookies. But there is beside the cookies, there is what you call a web bug or a web beacon. It's a tiny graphic that third-party website plays on another site's web page. Graphic and plugs in. Graphics are the browser plugs in. Graphic or browser plugs in and email attachment can harbor executable content. So we have a small program and can harbor. So browser plugs in programs enhance the browser capabilities, but can pose a security threat also. To stop all these threats, we have something called viruses and antiviruses for them. So we have viruses, worms, and then you have antivirus software. Programs automatically execute associated programs to display email attachments. So we click on the attachment and there is a program runs. Macrovirus is attached files that can be cause damage. These days, there is another viruses that even you don't need to execute it or open it. It works, especially in the mobiles. Virus is a software that attaches itself to host program and cause damage when a program is activated. I remember we got this problem, I Love You, in 2000 from one of the regional managers, virus. There's a macrovirus, which is a small program embedded inside the file. And there is what you call worm, is a virus that replicates itself on a computer. It infects and spreads quickly through the internet. Most of these worms trying to, when they replicate themselves, mean to just fill the network and slow it down. There's some of our other things that we run to it. There was another virus called Monkey, hit the Sage application, and that time was called AgPack. There is companies they produce antiviruses, which is the known one is McAfee and Symantec. They track the virus and they sell antiviruses. But also you need always to update your antiviruses, such as Symantec or McAfee. And then you have Yahoo and Gmails, which is some emails system. They do have these things. You can scan the attachment before you download it. A digital certificate. A digital certificate is an email attachment or a program embedded in the web page that verifies the identity. And then you have a certification authority, which is issue a digital certificate to organization and individual with the 6 elements. They are, validity, state, public key, serial number, issuer name, and digital signatures in it, and identifications. All you need to know is Al-Qaeda use that. There's another way of doing too. The physical security for clients and client securities for mobile. Today, mobile devices is taking over PCs and laptops. Client computer requires physical securities. The physical securities such as biometric securities device, fingerprint readers, and also access password helps secure mobile device. Many users installed also antivirus software on your mobile. On the other hand, the communication channel security and scarcity threats. So we have the devices. Now we talk about the communication channels. Internet was designed to provide redundancies and not to be secure. It remains unchanged from the original insecure state. So the internet is just to have access to it. Scarcity is a prevention of unauthorized information disclosure. Now, there is a privacy is the protection of individual right to non-disclosure, which is a legal matters. And there is a difference between European way and the American way. So the question here, should supervisor be allowed to randomly read employees' emails or not? Theft of sensitive or personal information is a significant electronic commerce threat. And we're going to see in the video how do they do it and how much they're generating from that. This is what you call a sniffer program, record information passing through a computer or router handling the internet traffic. And you have what you call the backdoor, allows users to run a program without going through a normal authentication procedures. That was in old days a hobby of mine. A stolen corporate information, and several company offers anonymous website that hide personal information from the site visited. You use these stuff. Try to see an example. Probably if you download something DuckDuckGo web browser, that can show you how many applications are sniffing. There's also the Gmail. The Google has its own, which is they utilize, and so that also you can see in it the mode. You change the mode of search. Now the issues comes in integrity threats. Is the active wiretapping when an authorized party alert message information streams, and it's about the domain servers or the internet, defining the domains and how the domains work, computer that link to IP address. And then something that you probably heard of it and know it is a phishing expedition trick victims into confidential information. You give the information, banking and payment system. These are more sophisticated, as you're going to see in the video or you saw it. And then there is something called delay denial or denial of services attack, which is a DOS attack that disrupt or deny normal computer processing, stops you, blocks you. And DOS or denial of service attack can remove information from a transmission or files. Imagine your mobile or laptop does not remembers or stopped from accessing to your data. And that's the big issue. But you know how the internet works. It's based on packet. So the internet packet-based network designed to preclude it from being shut down by attack or a single communication link, and also make it easier to move the information around. Individual users' internet service can be interrupted if they're not using packet, destruction of use internet links. Usually the larger companies, organizations use more than one link to maintain their internet backbone. So they use different fiber optics, different backbones, total backbones. But we have other things, fiber optics versus the wireless. So the wireless encryption protocol or WEB is a set of rules for encrypting transmissions over the wireless from a wireless device to wireless access point, which is a WAP. And companies can avoid by turning on the WEB and changing the default login and password setting. This problem, we saw that Best Buy wireless point of sales or POS failed to enable the web and customer intercepted data. We'll talk about this. So the purchase order, you go through hash function, message digest, and then private keys, and then convert it back. And the same thing, receiving, it could be sent two ways, the request sent differently and the payment process. So sending and receiving a digitally signed message. And then you can compare these two together. Now, server is a third link in the client internet server electronic commerce path. And that's another challenge. Web server administrators ensure security policies are documented and implemented. They make sure these are implemented. One of the most sensitive files on web server hold web server username and password pairs. So they are there to give you an access to the data and the main server that contain the data. The password threat using easy password, that's another problem. So you have the web server and there is a password and username to access to the web server by database manager or database employee. And then on the web server, there is tons of users' webs. And if you use a simple one, it's easy to access. So you access to all the data, basically all the web keys. So there's something called a dictionary attack program cycle through the electronic dictionary, trying to every word as they pass. So this is the type of injection that they use to access that. The solution to the threat includes strength requirement and company dictionary check. Passphrase is a sequence of words or text easy to remember, but a good password or a password hint. We do have some password hints. Password manager software security stores all of the person password. And you probably, if you downloaded some application, they store that for you. User only needs to remember the master password, you enter it, and then you get all the password to get access to the program. So these are the weak ones and the strong ones, and very strong ones, but example of password from very weak to very strong. Then you have what you call a database threat and other software-based threat. Most database systems rely on a username and password that may be stored in encrypted tables. So the first one we looked at it is the web server. Now the database fails to enforce security once you're in, cannot get them out. There is something called a Trojan horse program hide within the database system to change some data and reveal later on. Reveal information by changing access to the right. They go in, they change access to the right. Java or C+ programs execute by server often use a buffer memories area to hold the data there. So it does not give you direct access to the main data. And then you have what you call firewalls. It's a software, or actually it's a hardware software combination that is installed on your network to control the packet traffic and analyze them. The firewall principle is all the traffic must pass through it, only and then analyze it, and only authorized traffic can pass, and it immune to penetration. In the old days, it slows down the network. Now it is, you don't feel it. The network inside the firewalls are trusted, and those outside the firewall are untrusted. So you set up who is supposed to access to that network. There is a filter from selected message through the network, basically. And then you need to look at the SANS and Center for Educational Research information. We're not going to talk about these other organizations. Thank you.